With recent news of Microsoft purchasing Activision, the future of Crash Bandicoot remains a mystery, but fans are staying optimistic. Hello everybody, I'm OCDsaster, and welcome to the OCD Grand Prix, a season, if you will, on my channel where I will be covering kart racers. Today I thought it would be great to talk about Crash CTR, more specifically the remake from Beenox Crash Team Racing Nitro fueled, and how that game succeeded and failed in many regards. Before we take off on the first lap, please consider subscribing to the channel for future kart racing content. It is absolutely free and you can change your mind at any time. Back in the mid to late 90s, Crash Bandicoot belonged to Naughty Dog, and Universal Interactive was their publisher. Naughty Dog wanted to create a kart racer similar to that of Mario Kart, but was not quite sure if they could do it with the Crash Bandicoot characters. So they created block-like head characters for a kart racer and went to Universal to make sure that they had permission to go ahead and use the IP. And of course, as we know, Universal approved. It was smart thinking on Naughty Dog's perspective because they had a plan to have original kart racing characters if they could not use the Crash characters. But they were able to. To me, it sounds kind of crazy that the creators of the actual characters still has to go to the publisher to make sure that they can actually go through with their creation, but that gets into a little bit too much of a political thing that I'd rather not get into in this video. Crash Team Racing, or CTR, came to the PlayStation 1 in 1999 to much success. Even though it followed the formula of Mario Kart, it added new things to the gameplay that made players crave for more high-speed action, that being the power slide. You see, in Mario Kart, drifting was a thing, but Crash Team Racing took it to the next level, where if you hold your drift down too long, your character will actually burn out a little bit and lose a ton of speed as punishment. But that's not all. With the power slide, which is like a drift, the player could time the button correctly as their meter is filling up to get an extra boost with their power boost, storing up to 3 power boosts in one drift, which allowed for much more speed and exhaustion storage, which the player could then use in other parts of the track, such as speed boost. You see, when you get that chain of 3 drifts correctly and perfectly timed, not only do you go faster, but your storage will stay higher. So when you go on a speed boost, you'll go even faster than someone who wasn't drifting prior. This mechanic elevated the skill ceiling for the game. You could either choose to play in a casual way as if you were playing Mario Kart, or if you learned how to use this mechanic to your advantage, you could make it a speedrunning challenge and just try to gain more and more speed each lap. Players found a way where they didn't even have to drive straight. They could find a way to keep drifting the entire time they were racing to get as much maximum speed and acceleration as possible, leading to insanely fast lap times. Mastering the skill not only helps you in races against your friends on the couch, because remember, this was 1999. If you wanted to do multiplayer, you had to be sitting right next to the person you were playing with. But it also helped with the story mode, which I'd like to get into really quickly because I love it so much. In the original Crash Bandicoot game, you had a hub world of different islands in which you could navigate Crash and then go to the level. Naughty Dog brought this over for Crash Team Racing with their story mode, which had Crash drive around on a hub world and go onto portals to do different races and challenges, which made it all unique experience. This absolutely blew my mind as a kid, and in Naughty Dog fashion, it got more and more difficult. You see, in the original CTR, you couldn't change the difficulty. So when you were racing, the more tracks you unlocked and went to, the harder and harder the computers became. So you had to use those skills that you were learning in the other tracks to take advantage of the harder CPUs, but if you were like me as a kid and didn't understand the mechanics of the power slide, it became a little bit more frustrating because the computers would keep winning and beating your ass. In story mode, you had to get first place, which made the challenge even more intense and frustrating as you went along. But after you won the race, you could actually go back to the track and do different challenges that require you to do different skills other than just power sliding, such as finding shortcuts, timing jumps correctly, and the like. Beating these challenges would have you unlock more items in which you could use to progress through the hub world, but only after you beat them, which led to a lot of very frustrating gaming sessions for me. There were also boss battles, or in this case boss races, which came with their very own cutscenes. Beating the boss gave you a key that allowed you access into a new hub world with even more levels and tracks to try, which I thought was really amazing as a kid. The The bosses alone made me so happy because I loved any game that had boss battles, and this actually introduced me to Ripperoo, who happens to be my profile picture at this time of recording. Beating bosses would not only allow you to get access to different hub worlds, but you would also unlock them to play as in other modes such as battle mode, single race, time trial, and such. There are so many things I could talk about just about CTR in general, but I think it's time to move on to our second game. That's right, there's actually a second Crash racing game that helped inspire CTR Nitro Fueled, and that is Crash Nitro Kart, which is a game I didn't really play, but I'll give you a little bit of basic information on it. It would only make sense with the great success of Crash Team Racing that there would be a sequel, and in 2003, Vicarious Vision created Crash Nitro Kart, and the game didn't do as well as CTR, but that's pretty much the extent of my information on this because I don't want to make this video too long, and CTR is really where all the inspiration came for Nitro Fueled. But we'll get into what they added from Nitro Kart in Nitro Fueled. I know it's a little bit confusing with the titles in the next lap. And then finally, we actually have our third Crash game, Crash Tag Team Racing, which was the last racing Crash title underneath Universal Interactive, which now called themselves Vivendi Universal Games. Crash Tag Team Racing came out in 2007, and I will go more into this game in another video because I actually really had a lot of fun playing this game. 2007 is an important year in Crash Bandicoot history because that is when Crash Bandicoot was acquired by none other than Activision. With a bunch of failed games and crossovers under their belt, Activision seemed like they were going to retire the orange mascot, but fans were surprised to see that Beenox, a studio underneath Activision, was working on a game known as Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and in 2019 the game came out to much success. CTR Nitro Fueled was more than just a remake of the original game, it was an all-in-all collection of amazing fan service and Crash Bandicoot delight throughout the entire history of the series. There were quality of life improvements such as a difficulty mode for the story. Along with the story, you could actually choose whether you want to do classic mode or the Nitro Fueled mode, in which you could actually change your characters in between races, whereas in the original game, the first character you pick is the only character you can play throughout the whole story. You could also customize how you wanted your power slide meter to look. You could change the type of soundtrack you wanted from the original to the new and improved remaster, and so much more content was added in regards to modes and characters. When I say that this was a collection of the whole Crash Bandicoot series, I was not kidding. You had characters from Crash CTR, from Crash Nitro Kart, from Crash Tag Team Racing, and from more obscure games like Crash Twinsanity, the Game Boy Crash games, along with all the tracks from CTR and Nitro Kart. Speaking of karts, the customization was absolutely insane as the player could unlock more and more stuff to put on their kart, such as stickers, they could change the wheels and stuff like that, and all the characters had very unique and distinct costumes and color swaps that the player could unlock by doing a bunch of different challenges, and oh my gosh were there challenges, but I'll get into that in a second. In the original CTR, the characters had their own classes such as speed class, balance class, turn class, and Beenox kept it in the game, but they added something else as a quality of life feature, and that is no matter what character you play, you can switch these settings. So that way, if you like to play a speed type character, but you prefer a balance like stat, you can actually change that for the game. I could go on for hours about all the things that Beenox did right. When it comes to the graphics, the sound design, the remastered stages, it's all beautiful and amazing, and I don't think any CTR fan, or even new fan to the Crash series, has any complaints on that regard. Now we're going to move into some things that kind of get a little bit sketchy. So there is currency in this game. It's Activision, they're going to have microtransactions, that's the market, that's the publisher. Wumpa coins were in-game currency that the player could earn by doing a bunch of different races and or challenges. You had daily challenges, weekly challenges, and pro challenges that had a more higher amount of currency that you could unlock by doing them. But there was kind of a little bit of a twist to this, because some of those challenges included completing tracks and times with a specific character. But if that specific character was locked, you either had to unlock them, which was fine, or you had to purchase them in the pit stop, which looked familiar to the shop in Fortnite. To be clear, some characters you unlocked by doing the story mode and some other things, but there were some characters that you literally had to purchase in order to get. and that got people a little bit mad because you either had to grind the game out a ridiculously long amount of time to get coins, or you actually had to go to the pit stop and use real money to buy the Wumpa coins to get the characters, to get the challenges, just to get more coins. It was a vicious cycle. But actually, not so much, because soon after the game's release, it was announced that the Grand Prix events were going to be coming out for Crash CTR, which meant players could do a bunch of challenges and earn extra bonuses to get more coins, characters, stickers, and unlock. The Grand Prix happened every month and allowed the player to unlock characters, carts, and stickers without having to go to the pit stop and buy them. Simply by playing the game more, you would get more Nitro, and the Nitro would fill up a meter, and where that meter ended would be what you unlocked. So if you filled the meter up to a tire, you would unlock a new tire. If you filled it up all the way to a character, you would unlock a character. And what made this even better was there were usually 3 characters you could unlock by filling that meter up all the way, which would take about a week or two to do, but it kept the player base coming back for more. And the characters weren't just any characters. They were throwbacks to old Crash franchises, and even a Grand Prix that had Spyro. Yes, Spyro was added to the game. Each Grand Prix introduced a free track that would be added to the game, and for the holiday months, there were holiday skins and tracks for the characters as well. It was absolutely amazing, and I remember having a blast going on and seeing the chicken announcers discussing the new Grand Prix that was there for that month. The Grand Prix was a great idea because it kind of was a veil over the microtransactions that the game had, and fans were kind of looking past it. I know I sure did. It incentivized the players to go online, play with friends, even do single player modes, and just keep coming back to the game for more and more customizable and unlockable content. And as any of you who know me know, I love unlockable content. So this entire time, I haven't really been giving any negative criticisms or feedback to this game, and that's because Beenox did an absolute banger of a job with this remake. I mean, they knocked it out of the park. From the mechanics to the improved graphics to the character roster, everything was looking really good. But if you were like me, you were going to be surprised by the end of the year. Alright, so now we're going to get into the negatives and the criticisms I have for this game, and most of it isn't even on the Beenox team themselves, but of course the evil entity known as Activision, which was recently purchased by Microsoft. After about a year of being out, it was confirmed by Beenox and Activision that the Grand Prix were going to be coming to an end, and this was a big shocker for me. You see, I was at a very busy point in my life during the time this game came out, so I didn't play all the Grand Prix because I thought that they would come back each year in their respective months, so I could unlock those characters again. So this was absolutely a head scratcher for me, because even though it would be a repeat event, it would have still been nice to go back and unlock the characters. I remember actually panicking, thinking that the characters that I didn't unlock during the Grand Prix were never going to be accessible to me, and I couldn't be a completionist anymore because the Grand Prix were over. Turns out, you could unlock them. You know how? The pit stop, aka the microtransaction shop that Activision set up in this game. Of course, when the Grand Prix was over, they made it super difficult to grind out the coins. You would only basically get pennies for your work playing the game, meaning it was a lot harder to get enough to purchase characters and customization in the pit stop, which was absolutely frustrating. But what made it even more frustrating was that the updates were no longer coming out. Beenox kind of tipped their hat off to the fans by adding their own personal times to the time attacks, which was a really cool and insane challenge for the hardcore fans. But after that, that was it. Everything went pretty much dark. No one heard anything about the game, and updates never came out, even though people were speculating for the anniversaries. Of course Beenox was going to do something, but they didn't. Why? Well, to put it quite frankly, Activision made them move over to Call of Duty. Yes, that's right. Activision, being the total scum of a publisher that only wanted their dude bros playing Call of Duty and allegedly, I said allegedly, harassing women in the workforce, pretty much moved every single team that was working on other games that were not Call of Duty over to Call of Duty because it was the biggest selling of their business model. So Beenox had to leave the project. They didn't have a choice. That was it. It was done. The game was dead. And when I mean dead, I mean it died fast. It was a good game and still is a great game, but there's nothing else to it. I still hop on from time to time to race online or to do a few little challenges here and there, but I never find myself playing it for hours on end like I used to when the Grand Prix was around, because you had incentive to play. Now it takes forever to get just a little bit of Wumpa coins to unlock stuff in the pit stop, which is super infuriating. And I just can't get over the fact that Beenox had to abandon this amazing project that they did just to make Call of Duty. And the sad part is, this is very common in the video game industry. Lately, I've been binging a lot of behind-the-scene development stuff about video games, and publishers do this a lot. These tiny little studios have these passion projects that they're doing to, satisfy the fans and themselves, and then the big boys, the ones that tell them what to do, their bosses, make them move over to AAA titles because that's where the big money is, and it's just very sad. I understand why they do it, but at the same time, it's not really for the players anymore. It's for the big cats that have money in their pockets, and their stockholders and investors get their cut of the money. If and when this acquisition for Activision goes through for Microsoft, I just really hope that the future of Spyro and Crash is a good one, and that some of these teams like Toys for Bob and Beenox can go back to what they were really good at making, and that was these types of games. Microsoft seems like they're really trying to satisfy the players and their investors at the same time, which I think is a better situation than what Activision was in, but only time can tell. I know I missed a lot in this video when it comes to information, history, and stuff like that, but I didn't want to drag this on for longer than it needed to. So if you are more curious about the development of any of these games or stuff like that, you can go ahead and research it yourself. I was kind of doing more of an overview and my opinion on why this game was so great and fell from that greatness so fast. And you did it. That's the end of the race. If you made it to the end, then you came in first place. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more of this kart racing content. Also, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of this video. Your opinion matters to me, and I'm trying to gather as much feedback and analytic data as possible to figure out what really works for these types of videos. If you want to see more like this, please let me know. I have a few other racing games with some history that I'd like to talk about, such as Sonic Riders and Crash Tag Team Racing, like I mentioned before. I'm OCDsaster. This has been another video for the OCD Grand Prix. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I hope you race on. See ya!